Hey, so we seem to be getting to the end of January about now, so I thought what better time to go through the upcoming movies of the year. What, the start of January, I hear you say? Yeah, you're probably right, but here we are. So I'm going to go through these in categories, starting off with, of course, the horror/thriller films, starting off with original ones. Then I'm going to get to the sequels and reboots and stuff, and then I'm going to get to the non-horror stuff a bit later on. And so yeah, it's about as simple as that. Let's just get to it. So I'm starting off with a film that is easily one of my most highly anticipated films of the year, and the funny thing is I only found out of its existence just yesterday. It is a movie called Infinity Pool, directed by Brandon Cronenberg, who did Possessor, and it's the son of David Cronenberg, who did The Fly and a bunch of other classics like that. This stars Alexander Skarsgård, plus the certified scream queen herself, Mia Goth, who is famous for being an ex-Pearl and also having a Peppa Pig voice. The plot of this film is described as being a horror/sci-fi film. Infinity Pool is about a romantic couple enjoying a beach vacation in a seemingly exotic paradise, but they soon find themselves to be in trouble when a fatal accident occurs outside of the safety net of their luxury hotel, leaving James Foster, the protagonist, at odds against the insidious hidden population of this island, who quickly prove themselves to be a culture of violence. And now facing harsh ramifications of the death penalty, James is placed in some sort of prison where surreal horrors submerge and reckless violence takes place. It looks really fucked up and genuinely really scary, I'm hoping anyway, and very, very interesting. This is expected to be released on the 27th of January, apparently, at least in the US and Canada. There's no actual Australian release date yet. Because of course there's not. What a fucking surprise, right? We're never told when movies are coming out. And of course, when it comes to a pretty art housey sounding type of horror film, well, it's just going to be left up for total surprise if we ever get it. Anyway, my rant is over. Next up is Beau is Afraid. And if you're into A24, if you're into Ari Aster, the director who did Hereditary and Midsummer, if you're into Joaquin Phoenix, who stars in this, or if you're just into horror films, you've probably heard of this. The trailer came out, I don't know, a week or two ago or something. Everyone was talking about it. And this movie is described as a mystery comedy drama on IMDb. It's apparently not listed as a horror film and is not a horror film according to Ari Aster himself, but more described as a surreal nightmare that's more comedic though, which sounds weird, right? But I'm very intrigued by that. The IMDb synopsis reads though, a decade-spanning portrait of one of the most successful entrepreneurs of all time. But what the trailer sells me is the story of a captured man going through a hellish cycle of mental instability, desperately trying to escape but ever succumbing to delusions of passing time. That's kind of the impression I got from the trailer. It's a total guess, but there's something about this that makes me think it's probably going to be easily one of my favorite films of the year. Looks like a total what the fuck type of movie in the vein of The House That Jack Built and A Cure for Wellness. It looks very introspective and disturbing, and I'm hoping it's going to be good. This is expected to be released on April 21st, 2023. Unfortunately, yet again, no Aussie release date as of yet, but I'm assuming it's the same for everyone in this case, because this is going to be kind of a bigger film. We typically get the A24 movies, so we'll see. Next up is a movie called Baby Ruby, directed by somebody named Bess Wohl. This is a first-time director, but they also wrote the Netflix film Irreplaceable You, which I was quite the fan of. It also stars Kit Harington from Game of Thrones, Jon Snow, blah blah blah. And look, I don't know if this is a horror film, by the way, but it probably leans closer to drama/thriller, but either way it sounds kind of disturbing and riveting as fuck. I'm really into it, as the film is apparently about an online influencer who begins to snap after becoming a first-time mother. As a content creator myself, I feel like this is going to be a really interesting watch, to say the least. It looks like it's going to be very, very, very intense. Think Uncut Gems, but for domestic motherhood, and seemingly a bit more horrific than that. This is expected to be released on the 3rd of February, in some places anyway. Next up is a movie called There's Something Wrong with the Children. This is directed by Roxanne Benjamin, who does mostly TV episode work like Riverdale, One of Us is Lying Creepshow, and Pretty Little Liars. I don't know, I'm not really familiar with this director, but it also stars Zach Gilford, who was the guy from Midnight Mass and The Purge Anarchy. I actually quite like that guy. Plus, this is a Blumhouse film, and that's really what gets me on board here. So the plot reads, on a weekend trip away, two families begin to suspect that something supernatural has begun to infect or possess their children, and they begin to act strangely after a brief overnight disappearance. So yeah, it doesn't sound particularly original or anything like that. It doesn't sound like it's gonna knock your socks off in the plot department, but the trailer looks genuinely pretty fucking great, and I'm pretty keen to see this. This is expected to be released already, apparently, as of the 17th of January, digitally on Paramount Plus, at least in the US, I'm guessing. But we don't have it here in Australia, and there also seems to be a second release date from MGM on March 17, presumably theatrically, I guess. I'm not exactly sure. I don't know. I think it's going digitally first, and then it's going theatrically for a little bit. Maybe I'm wrong about that. It's very confusing. God damn these fucking release dates. Next up is a movie called Sick, directed by John Hyams, another mostly single TV episode director, but written by Kevin Williamson, who is famous for writing Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer, so I'm kind of very interested because of that. And Sick tells a COVID horror story about two teenage friends quarantining at a family lake house who find out that they're not alone. So yeah, it's basic home invasion type of stuff, but I thought it looked promising based off the poster and trailer, and I'm pretty into it. This is expected to be released in the US anyway, already on the 13th of January, but what the fuck, who knows about Australia once again. I'm just gonna be really petty about that throughout this entire video, to be honest, because I fucking looked. I looked for the Australian release date of every single movie, and I got a bunch of them. They will show up soon, but yeah, I also got a bunch of ones where it's like, Australia? What the fuck's that? You don't matter. Anyway, I'm not gonna get too bitter about it. Next up is a movie called True Haunting, directed by Gary Flader, who is another mostly single TV episode director, and written by Blair Butler, who wrote last year's The Invitation, which is a movie that I actually quite liked, and 2018's Hellfest. This movie tells the supposed true story of the first televised exorcism. And while I'm skeptic to real-life supernatural events, I'm still a fan of films that are based on these sorts of things, like The Conjuring, and the story sounds at least somewhat intriguing, even if I don't particularly think that it's true in any way. Anyway, this has no official release date as of yet, but has a vague 2023 promise online. Next up is a movie called Inside. No, it's not the 2007 horror film Inside, but it is another horror film directed by Vasilis Katsoupas. So sorry if I said that wrong. I'm unfamiliar with this director, but it stars Willem Dafoe, who I do know, because he's the Green Goblin. This is only pegged as a drama on IMDb. It's more of a survival film and doesn't have exactly a high horror reputation so far or anything. But based off the trailer, it looks at least thriller-esque, and it looks like it's gonna be somewhat disturbing, at least, I think. So Inside tells the story of an art thief who gets trapped in his own doing and must try to survive when he's locked in a penthouse suite while performing a heist. This looks pretentious, I must admit, and it's way too easy an allegory for the COVID lockdown as well, but it does look very intense, and Dafoe looks like he's very committed to the role. But then again, when isn't he? I don't know, I'm intrigued by this. This is coming out on the 10th of March 2023 somewhere. Next up is a movie called Alice Darling, directed by Mary Nighy. I'm unfamiliar with this director, but it stars Anna Kendrick, and I'm really interested in this movie, but I'm not so sure it really belongs in the horror thriller category here. I'm a little confused about that. It does look like it leans more on the drama side of things, but it does look like it has some pretty heavy thriller elements to it based off the trailer. This film is about a woman in denial who's stuck in an abusive relationship, who's agreed to come along with her friends for a weekend getaway, and there she finds herself stuck between her friends who are trying to perform an impromptu intervention on her regarding her unhealthy relationship, as well as her ever-present partner who has control over her at all times, even when not there. This one looks really sad and frustrating, if I'm being honest, but also fantastic. This is expected to be released as of 2022, apparently. I think it showed in like some places, like at festivals and whatever, but I can't find a concrete release date, at least in Australia, so deal with it. I don't know, TBD at the moment, I suppose. Next up is a movie called Kids vs. Aliens, directed by Jason Eisner, who did the movie Hobo with a Shotgun, and this film is also directly based off his other work in the form of the VHS 2 segment titled Slumber Party Alien Abduction. This movie looks absolutely bonkers, by the way. I'm actually really into this, like in a really good way. It looks insane. It's got everything. Pulpy action violence, bizarre alien practical effects, and a kick-ass poster with a tagline that reads, "Fuck space." I'm kind of all in. This is on Shudder already, apparently, in America as of the 20th of January. I don't know about here. I hope so. I hope it releases on our Shudder, because this looks fun. Next up is a movie that you've probably heard of, but only as a meme, called Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, directed by Reese Frake Waterfield. This is basically a slasher version of Pooh Bear, and that's basically all you really need to know. It's as simple and stupid as that. This is probably going to be bad. I'm just going to be honest. honest, but it's an entertaining idea at the very least. And technically, just by the way, this should probably be in the reboots or remakes section of this video, but it really looks like it's so loosely based off the source material that it really doesn't matter. I think that this movie is really going to be judged as more of a meme than anything, and I'm sure it's going to live out among other movies like Snakes on a Plane, being more thought of as a joke than an actual film that anybody saw. I will be seeing it though, and I kind of can't wait. This is going to be a one-day event screening as of the 15th of February. Next up is a movie called Consecration, directed by Christopher Smith, who did Triangle, which is a fantastic horror film from 2009 that I don't even want to describe because it could be a spoiler, but please go in knowing nothing. Watch Triangle, huge recommend. Anyway, now this is a movie that is about religious-y stuff in terms of being a horror film, if that makes sense. And I'm not really usually into that aesthetic. I'm not really much of a religious horror guy. I liked Saint Maud, I love The Lodge, but apart from that, I'm pretty much usually iffy on the heavy Christ symbolism and everything being about the devil being evil. It's boring to me. I don't really care. And this is a film about priests, which inherently doesn't really interest me either, but watching the trailer colored me intrigued. I gotta be honest, this looks pretty good, I think, as it tells the story of a sister to a recently dead priest via alleged suicide. She goes to the convent where his death took place to investigate and finds out disturbing truths about herself and those around her. I don't know, it looks kind of good. And it's got a release of the 10th of February 2023 in some places. I don't know where. Next up is a movie called Snow Falls, directed by Colton Tran, who I'm unfamiliar with. But the synopsis reads, after a winter storm strands 5 friends in a remote cabin with no power and little food, disorientation slowly claims their sanity as each of them begin to fear that the snow outside itself may be contaminated or even evil. It sounds maybe a little bit dumb if I'm being honest, and it definitely looks like a low budget film, but I think it has potential. I think. This apparently is expected to be released already on the 17th of January, but it's not out here. If you're watching this and you're American, you probably have it. If you're from anywhere else, it's anyone's guess. Next up is a movie called Cuckoo, directed by Tillman Singer. And not much can be said of this just yet, I gotta be honest, but it has Hunter Schafer in it of Euphoria fame. And it's a horror movie with one single image released so far. That's all we really know about it. But that one image looks pretty promising to me. Presumably, this is a movie about an insane asylum, and it's kind of just like a horror movie where somebody, I don't know, has to escape, is going crazy, something like that. And yeah, just based off that title and image, I'm kind of interested. Next up is a movie called Enys Men. I think that's how you say it. E-N-Y-S Men. Don't know. Anyway, but this is directed by Mark Jenkin, who I'm unfamiliar with. But this is an experimental film made in 2022, but set in 1973, and looks like it was made in 1973. Like, literally looks like it was made then. I'm not just saying, like, production design and that kind of stuff, but this actually looks like it was shot on cameras from the past. It looks like it was shot in 1973. It looks kind of ugly to me, but the aesthetic, though, like, it's really going for it, and I kind of respect that. This is a horror film about a wildlife volunteer that takes a metaphysical journey that forces her to question what is real and what is a nightmare. And I don't know. This looks like it's going to be a headfuck. This looks like it could be absolute shit, or it looks like it might be a fucking masterpiece, to be honest. I really don't know. And as of the release date, this has already been shown at a bunch of film festivals, but I have no word on a public release date as of yet. And now we are up to the next category of this video, which are the obvious horror films or sequels or reboots, all that kind of stuff. Things that are based off things that already exist. And the first one that I'm going to say here is The Last Train to New York, directed by Timo Tihantto, who is the director of The Night Comes for Us, which is a fucking brilliant movie. And this is written by Gary Duberman, who did the Annabelle films, the It films, and unfortunately The Nun. I say unfortunately because I think that film sucks, but I also think It 2 sucks and Annabelle 1 sucks. It has some good promising potential there, I think. But the big dog though, the one thing I'm really excited about is that this is produced by James Wan, and I hadn't said it yet, this is a direct remake of the Korean film Train to Busan. If you somehow haven't heard of this, if you know about Train to Busan and haven't heard that they were making a remake as of yet, you may feel angry at the moment hearing about it, because why would they do that, right? It's so unnecessary. But I'm still pretty fucking interested, you know? How are they gonna do it? How are they gonna make it worse? Probably. But I don't know. It's Train to Busan, but now it's set in America. And by the way, if you don't know, the original film is about a father traveling with his daughter via train when a zombie apocalypse implodes on their lives. The original film is phenomenal, and I expect this one to be good, if not unnecessary. You know what I mean? Anyway, the official release date as of now is the 21st of April 2023. Next up is a movie called Evil Dead Rise, whose trailer and poster came out like a week or two ago. This is directed by Lee Cronin, who I'm unfamiliar with, but it's written by Sam Raimi. This is about a previously paralyzed mother who begins to miraculously recover, only she may not be who she used to be. Obviously, being an Evil Dead film, the mother is of course being possessed by an evil demon or whatever, and from then on the kids must fight for their lives against the most nightmarish version of family imaginable in a primal battle for survival. This looks fucking awesome. I wasn't that interested in this before I watched the trailer. I was like, yeah, I'm sure it's gonna be good. I'm excited for it. Evil Dead, you know, it's gonna be cool. The poster looked good, but the trailer actually looks pretty fucking good, and that's saying something because I'm not much of a trailer guy. I usually don't really give a shit, but this got me all in, and it's expected to be released on the 20th of April 2023. Next up is easily my most anticipated film of the year, Saw X, or Saw 10. Directed by Kevin Grutard, who's the editor of Saws 1 through 5, as well as Jigsaw, and the director of Saw 6 and 7. And not much can be said about Saw 10 as of yet, because it's been completely kept under wraps, apart from a few images of Tobin Bell at a playground. But presumably this tells John Kramer's backstory a little bit more, while continuing the story of where Jigsaw left off. Get out of here, Spiral. We're done with you, I suppose, because we're continuing this legacy franchise. And it's safe to say that this is absolutely one that I'm gonna just shit my pants to see. I don't know why I said that, but I'm so fucking excited for this movie. And yeah, it's definitely up there with Infinity Pool and Beau is Afraid for me as some of the most highly anticipated films for me, obviously. I mean, it's, you know, I don't know, can you see that on camera? I've got a fucking Saw tattoo now. I'm gonna be seeing Saw 10 as soon as I possibly can. And speaking of James Wan Origins, Insidious 5 Fear the Dark is also coming out this year. Directed by Patrick Wilson as well, which is awesome. Speaking of my fanboy dreams coming true, Insidious is back with Lee Winnell back as a writer as well. Patrick Wilson, Rose Byrne, and Ty Simpkins are back as well. And we're continuing another legacy horror franchise again in 2023. Insidious is set a decade after we last saw the Lambert family in Insidious 2, and I guess they are shit out of luck once again because some bad stuff is going to happen to them. Apparently Lynn Shay's Elise does not seem to be making an appearance in this film though, by the way, which I suppose is a little bit disappointing, but it's Insidious, man. I can't be too disappointed. The release date of this is the 7th of July 2023. Next up, and you already fucking know this one, why am I even bothering to include it, but it's Scream 6. Frustratingly, just by the way, I fucking hate that it's officially called Scream 6. They literally dropped the numbered title in the last film, just called it Scream. Went from Scream 4 to Scream, and now it's going back to Scream 6. You can't do that. That's breaking the rules. It's fucking killing me. I hate it. I hate it so much. Anyway, this is directed by Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillett, the team behind the last Scream film, as well as Ready or Not, and stars, of course, Jenna Ortega, Courtney Cox, and a bunch of other members from the cast of the previous film, but controversially excluding Neve Campbell. Scream 6 is officially jumping the shark, by the way, and taking Ghostface to New York City. It's officially Ghostface Takes Manhattan, and I'm so fucking excited. This is coming out pretty fucking soon, just by the way, as of the 10th of March 2023. Next up is The Exorcist, directed by David Gordon Green. Yeah, that David Gordon Green, that's right. To say I'm apprehensive would be a fucking understatement. They're rebooting The Exorcist with the director that arguably fucked up the most recent Halloween entry, or entries, depending on who you ask. And this time, it's a sequel to the original film as well. And this is gonna piss a lot of people off, but to be honest, I don't have a lot of skin in the game. I'm not a huge fan of the original Exorcist, so maybe DDG, you know, how he fucks it up this time isn't actually gonna bother me so much, personally. But that being said, I'm also not the biggest fan of the Halloween franchise either, and Halloween Kills, and especially Ends, infuriated me. So maybe he's gonna piss me off with The Exorcist here as well, I don't know. Or maybe he's gonna do a really good job because the 2018 Halloween film is pretty solid. Maybe he'll do that with The Exorcist and then make two fucking atrocious sequels. I don't know. This is expected to be released on the 13th of October 2023. 2023. Then there is also The Nun 2. They are making a sequel to The Nun. Why? I don't know, but they're doing it. This is directed by Michael Caves, the director of The Conjuring 3 and The Curse of La Llorona. And yeah, they're making a sequel to The Nun, which is arguably the worst film in the Conjuring franchise, apart from La Llorona. I'm hesitant, but, you know, I'm gonna see it. We all know I'm gonna see it, so I guess I'll see what I think then. This is coming out on the 8th of September 2023. In some places, I'm guessing it's coming out around the same time everywhere. And now we are up to the next category, which are the non-horror films. And these are the underdogs. I'm prioritizing the films that you probably haven't heard of before I get to the obvious shit soon enough. First up is a movie called When You Finish Saving the World, directed by Jesse Eisenberg. It's his directorial debut, and it also stars Finn Wolfhard and Julianne Moore. This is about a modern-day mother and son relationship, and it looks just really cute and quirky. It's just like a dramedy kind of thing. I'm into it. It looks good. And depending on who you ask, this is already out according to release dates, but these seem to be for festivals only, and I can't tell you. I'm not there. I haven't been to any of these film festivals. And as of public release dates, fuck, it's anyone's guess. I don't know. Next up is a movie called A Good Person, directed by Zach Braff, who is famous for being JD on Scrubs, who I absolutely love. This stars Florence Pugh and Morgan Freeman, and I'm mostly into this for Zach Braff. Even though I don't really like the movies that much that he's made so far, I'm still a huge fan of him because of Scrubs, and I just want to see what he's up to, you know? My beloved Scrubs. Let's see where it goes. The release date at the moment is the 24th of March 2023. Next up is a movie called Blaze, directed by Del Catherine Barton, who I'm unfamiliar with. This stars Josh Lawson, who is famous for being Kano in the Mortal Kombat movie from a year or two ago. This is an Australian movie with an official Australian release date, the 17th of June 2023. This is about a young girl who witnesses a violent crime and copes by imagining fantastical daydreams. This sounds really interesting to me, and yeah. That's all. Next up is a movie called The Seven Faces of Jane, directed by, this movie has actually 8 fucking directors, who I'm all pretty unfamiliar with, including some like Julian Acosta, Zan Kasavitz, and Gia Coppola. This also stars Gillian Jacobs and Joel McHale for the Community fans. This sounds like a sort of experimental film, by the way, with an interesting premise about a woman who is depicted in 8 different ways by 8 different directors. So why the fuck is it called The Seven Faces of Jane, you ask? I don't know. I haven't seen it. Anyway, this is another one that's supposedly out already as of the 13th of January 2023, but I don't have it out here, believe it or not. The Australians, once again, don't have it. So if it's available to you at the moment, I don't know, check. It might be. Next up is a movie called Next Goal Wins, directed by Taika Waititi with Michael Fassbender. I spoke about this movie last year, thinking it was going to come out in 2022, actually, whoops, but I guess I was wrong. So here it is again. This is a biopic about the infamously terrible American Samoa soccer team and the story of their massive loss, and the biggest loss in FIFA history when they lost 31-0 in 2001. This is expected to be released on the 21st of September 2023 in Australia, and pretty much, give or take, a day everywhere else as well. And I'm expecting great things from here. Even though I don't really like Taika Waititi that much, as of late at least. I don't like Thor 4. I don't like... I guess I like his other movies, but like, I'm not a huge fan of him. I find him kind of annoying, but I feel like this one is going to be coming from a real true human place. And I think that's where he really does his best work, like in his older movies like Boy and Eagle vs. Shadow. Next up is a movie called Being Mortal, directed by Aziz Ansari and has Seth Rogen, Bill Murray and Keke Palmer in it. And this is based off a non-fictional book by a doctor about euthanasia. I don't really get what this is going to be, but it sounds really interesting as the book is apparently about life and death and what really matters in the end. It's about facing death and giving people dignity in that. And I don't know, I'm very intrigued by this. But not much info apart from that can be said at the moment, and there's no official release date. Next up is a movie called Asteroid City, directed by Wes Anderson. It's Wes Anderson's next film, woo! With a big cast of people, including Bryan Cranston, Margot Robbie, Edward Norton, Tom Hanks, Scarlett Johansson, Maya Hawke, Steve Carell, Willem Dafoe, Adrian Brody, Tilda Swinton, and believe it or not, even more famous people than that. I don't really care that much about this film though, I gotta say. I don't really like Wes Anderson all that much. I find his movies kind of annoying, but there's not much info about this at the moment. I've heard nobody talking about it, and I imagine it's gonna be pretty big. It's gonna be a pretty big deal among film bros in the coming months. so I thought I'd mention it here. This is expected to be released on the 23rd of June 2023. Next up is a movie called Night Bitch, directed by Merrill Heller, who I'm unfamiliar with, and it stars Amy Adams. This is about a woman who thinks she's turning into a dog, and it's described as a comedy fantasy horror film on IMDb. If you're not interested in that, what? How could you not? Next up is a movie that you've definitely heard of called Cocaine Bear. This is one that has also been the talk of the town recently, directed by Elizabeth Banks. It tells the story of a criminal who majorly fucks up a drug transport, leaving a wreckage of cocaine in the woods. What follows is a 500-pound apex predator in the form of a grizzly bear who accidentally gets caught up in the drugs and goes on a murderous rampage. It sounds absolutely insane to me, and it's also based off a true story. This actually happened apparently, and yeah. I also talked about this one last year thinking it was going to come out in 2022, but it didn't. Anyway, this is expected to be released on the 24th of February 2023. Next up is a movie called The Tomorrow Job, directed by Bruce Wemble, who I'm unfamiliar with, but this got me with a great premise. It'll probably leave me disappointed, probably won't be that good, looks like a very low budget film that maybe won't reach the heights that it's trying to, but it undeniably sounds cool as the premise reads. A team of thieves use a drug that allows them to trade consciousness with their future selves in order to steal tomorrow's secrets. What? That sounds really cool. This has no official release date apart from a few festival showings. That was on the 17th of January 2023. Next up is a movie called 65, directed by Scott Beck and Brian Woods, the team behind A Quiet Place and Haunt. Starring Adam Driver, this is a film about a dinosaur island, basically. An astronaut crash lands on a mysterious planet only to discover that he is not alone. Ooh, and it looks pretty fucking fun to me. This is releasing everywhere in March and April 2023. It varies depending on where you are. Next up is a movie that you've definitely heard of as well called Oppenheimer, directed by Christopher Nolan. And look, I gotta say, I'm not as high on Christopher Nolan as everyone else is, so I'm not sure that I'm really all that hyped for this. I didn't like Tenet. I liked Dunkirk, but I didn't like it as much as everybody else. I don't like a lot of his movies as much as everyone else does. Inception is great, The Dark Knight is great, but apart from that, I'm not a huge Christopher Nolan fan. But I'll be seeing it, you know, who am I kidding? I'm gonna see this thing, so I guess I'm gonna find out what I think on the 21st of July 2023. And of course, same day release, the Barbie movie. Barbie directed by Greta Gerwig, who did Lady Bird. And of course, this stars Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling, and this movie is such an enigma. What the fuck is it gonna be? I actually have no idea, and I'm fucking curious as hell to find out. I think it might have a little bit of Joker in here, with Barbie going nuts, as the premise reads. To live in Barbie land is to be a perfect being in a perfect place, unless you have a full existential crisis, or you're Ken. So it seems to have a sense of humor, but I also think it's going to have some pretty heavy social commentary here about expectations, maybe social media, maybe how we view women, the male gaze, all that kind of stuff. I'm just guessing. You know, this is based off absolutely nothing, and the trailer is really fucking surreal. It doesn't really explain what the hell it's going to be at all. But I think that this is maybe going to be genuinely great. Maybe. Or it might be really shit. I don't know. This is coming out on the 20th of July 2023. And now we are up to the last category, which are the obvious non-horror sequels and reboots and all that kind of stuff. So, we're starting off with Guardians of the Galaxy 3, directed by James Gunn, who's returning, of course, to finish this trilogy. In the film, Star-Lord deals with the death of Gamora, the original one anyway, and the Guardians fight a new mission. And, I don't know, a lot of people think that some of the characters are going to die, Rocket being the one that everyone thinks for sure is going to die, and I'm sure it's going to be a pretty great movie. I don't know. This is coming out early May 2023. Then Ant-Man 3 is coming out. It's coming out first, actually. This is coming out in mid-February 2023. Directed by Peyton Reed, who did the last films. This is about Scott Lang, who explores the quantum realm where they interact with strange creatures and embark on an adventure that goes beyond the limits of what they thought was possible. So pretty vague, but it has that new villain in it and stuff, and I don't know, man. Yeah, Marvel. I'm getting less and less interested as they go. I think this is going to be good because it's Ant-Man and it's going to be kind of fun and hopefully a bit light, but don't know. Speaking of not caring about Marvel as much as I used to, the next movie is The Marvel, which is a sequel to Captain Marvel, directed by Nia DaCosta, and this is coming out late July 2023. There's not much that can be said about this in the moment. We don't really know too much, and I don't know if I care very much at all. But one that I do care about, speaking of, when it comes to Marvel, is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, directed by Joaquim Dos Santos, Kemp Powers, and Justin K. Thompson, and written by our Lords and Saviors Phil Lord and Chris Miller. This is just more Spider-Verse adventure stuff. I don't know what to tell you. It's coming out in late May, early June 2023. Next up is The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, directed by Francis Lawrence, who did the other Hunger Games movies. And this is a prequel to the Hunger Games series, exploring the backstory of the original series' villain in President Snow when he falls in love with a District 12 tribute in the 10th annual Hunger Games. And I'm actually pretty excited for this one. I don't know. I know a lot of people are gonna see like Hunger Games prequel and groan like, I can't believe they're trying that again. But I don't know. I like the Hunger Games movies quite a lot, and I'm pretty keen to see this one. This is coming out on the 15th, 16th, and 17th of November 2023, depending on where you're from. Next up is John Wick 4, and I just gotta say, man, this is gonna be more fucking lore to the John Wick series. I don't want it. I don't need it. I'm sure the movie's gonna be cool. It's gonna be fun. I'm into it. But the John Wick series itself got unnecessarily ambitious. Stop explaining the assassin world. I don't want to know every fucking detail of how the universe works. In my opinion, it kills the mystery and makes everything less interesting. I'm sure the action will be cool in John Wick 4 though, and I'm gonna have fun. I just wish it was never a franchise. The John Wick original film should have been a one and done standalone film. I would have fucking loved it. But here we are, and it is a massive franchise, and I'm gonna say it, and I'm probably gonna like it. This is directed by Chad Stahelski, who did the other John Wick films, and is coming out on the 23rd of March 2023 in Australia, and the 24th in other countries. Next up is The Expendables 4, directed by Scott Wow. It's coming out on the 22nd of September 2023, and I do not give a shit. Who cares about that? Anyone? Let me know if you do. Next up is TMNT, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, directed by Jeff Rao and Kylie Spears, the directors of The Mitchells vs. the Machines, and it has Seth Rogen involved in some way. I guess he's voicing one of them? I don't know yet. On the 4th of August 2023, apparently. Next up is Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, directed by Christopher McQuarrie, who did Rogue Nation and Fallout, the previous Mission Impossible films, and this is presumably about an impossible mission that turns out to be not that impossible. This is coming out July 2023. Next up is Fast X or Fast 10, directed by Louis Leterrier, who did Now You See Me, The Incredible Hulk, and The Transporter, and this is presumably about family. This is coming out mid-May 2023. Then there's Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, directed by James Mangold, who did Logan and Ford v Ferrari. This is presumably about Indiana Jones, and also a Dial of Destiny of some sort, coming out on the 28th of June 2023. Then there's Transformers Rise of the Beast, directed by Steve Capel, who did Creed 2. This is presumably about Transformers and also Beasts Rising, and I don't care. This is coming out for early June 2023. Then there's Shazam, Fury of the Gods, directed by David F. Sandberg, who I love, but who I wish he wasn't wasting his fucking time on these Shazam movies. He did Lights Out and Shazam 1, and this is presumably about Shazam and also Furious Gods, coming out on March 15th, 16th, and 17th of 2023, and I don't care. Then there is The Flash, directed by Andy Muschietti, who did It's Chapter 1 and 2. Supposedly this is coming out in June 2023, but I'll believe it when I see it. I don't know about this one. You know, the whole Ezra Miller stuff, I don't know if this is ever coming out, but we'll see. Next up is Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, directed by James Wan, regrettably. Speaking of David F. Sandberg wasting his time, why is James Wan doing fucking Aquaman movies? Of course, James Wan is famous for doing Insidious, Saw, The Conjuring, and Aquaman 1, as well as Fast and the Furious 7 for some fucking reason. He's been disappointing me since 2015. Anyway, presumably wasting James Wan's time, this is a movie where things happen with Aquaman under the water. This is coming out on Christmas Day, apparently. Next up is a movie called Blue Beetle, another DC Comics film directed by Angel Manuel Soto, who I'm unfamiliar with. This is about a Mexican teenager who finds an alien beetle that gives him superpowered armor on the 16th and 17th and 18th of August. Then there is a remake of The Haunted Mansion coming out, directed by Justin Simon, who did Dear White People. This is coming out on the 11th of August 2023, and I don't know if I can. Next up is the Super Mario Bros. Movie. This is directed by Aaron Horvath and Michael Jelinek, who have done various kids TV work, and this is the story of the Super Mario Bros. And their journey to the Mushroom Kingdom, and I don't care. This is coming out on the 5th of April in Australia. We got an Australian release date. Dun 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 dun! And dates spanning from March to May everywhere else. Next up is Elemental, directed by Peter Son, who has done various Pixar work. This follows Ember and Wade in a city where fire, water, land, and air residents live together. And I'm thinking this is just going to be like a spiritual sequel to Inside Out. It looks exactly like Inside Out, except it's about the elements instead of emotions. And I don't know, it's Pixar, so I'm pretty keen. This is coming out on the 15th of June 2023. Then there's the Little Mermaid movie, which is just pissing a certain demographic off. This is directed by Rob Marshall, who did Into the Woods and Mary Poppins Returns. So I don't know. This is safely not for me. This is a remake of The Little Mermaid, believe it or not, coming out on the 26th of May 2023. Then there is Wonka coming out. Speaking of wasting talented people's time, Timothée Chalamet should be doing better stuff. Anyway, this is directed by Paul King, who did Paddington 1 and 2, and it is a dreaded prequel focusing on a young Willy Wonka and how he met the Oompa Loompas on one of his earliest adventures. And I don't care, I don't want to see this, but my wife is excited for it, meaning I will see this. Damn it. This is coming out on the 1st of December 2023. And now, the last film that I have here, finally we are at the end, the last film, and I've left the best for last, obviously. Chicken Run Dawn of the Nugget. Yes, they're making a Chicken Run sequel 23 years after the original film. This is directed by Sam Fell, who did Flushed Away, so obviously a classic filmmaker that we all know and love. And presumably, this film is about chickens running, and also nuggets, and also Dawn. And there is no official release date yet, but yeah, Chicken Run. And that's what I decided to end the video with. And that is everything coming out in the year of 2023. Not actually everything, just a bunch of stuff that I thought was worth mentioning. And yeah, so that's about it. Tell me what you're excited for. I'm most excited for Infinity Pool, Beau is Afraid, and Saw 10, and Insidious 5. Those are easily my most highly anticipated films, if I had to tell you. But yeah, there's a bunch of good stuff coming out. I'm pretty excited. I think it has potential, the year in general. And that's movies. Cool, we did it. I'm gonna go now, but before you go, please do that thing. So like, comment, share, subscribe, all that shit. And I'm outie. Goodbye.